I'm Chuck Schneider. Today we're going to talk about 6 useful tips to ensure you choose the right test automation tool. Number 1, know what technology and devices you are using. If you're solely focused on testing web, then you only need to find a vendor tool that specializes in web technologies. But be careful, web technologies does not mean native mobile applications. So make sure you have an understanding of where you're going and whether or not the scope of what you're testing is ever going to expand before you narrow yourself down too quickly. Number 2, do you have any special use cases? For example, do you have a communication application that needs to span across laptops or across 2 different mobile devices? You want to make sure that your vendor tool can have one test that can span across these devices, so that way it can catch errors and validate that the message is received from device A over to device B and back again. Number 3, know how technical your testers are. Some of the vendors require you to be very technical and know how to basically program, while others have a much simpler, non-technical approach that appeal to a wider, broader of users. Know what your skill sets are and weigh that as if you have to go upskill a bunch of your testers. Number 4, test maintenance, the silent killer. Make sure you realize once you create your tests that then you will need to update your automated tests as the software changes. Most vendors allow you to create snippets or reusable modules to where you can create things such as login or add functionality, contain that into its own module, and then go and inherit that across the other tests. When that area of the software changes, you can just update that core module, and then the rest of the tests will inherit that. Image-based recognition also helps with maintainability. Like I mentioned earlier, some software, when you recompile, regenerates object IDs, which makes the test quite fragile. For the image recognition, make sure that the vendor also does OCR, optical character recognition, which just means it can read text within images, and you can do further validation using OCR. Number 5, vendor training and support. Definitely look into the training. You want to get as quick as ROI as possible once you make your purchase. Training is the quickest way to get your users up to speed and starting to get value out of that tool. Also, support. You'll have questions as you go, and you want to make sure someone is going to be on the other line to make sure they answer your questions. So dig in and ask about their support agreements, and you may want to ask other folks in the community on the level of support that this vendor supplies. And lastly, number 6, vendor and product longevity. You want to make sure first that this vendor is going to be around 2, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, as you go and invest and build out a wide catalog of automated tests. But also keep in mind you want to make sure that the product itself stays around. Some areas are a lot more volatile, such as mobile-only focused automated tests. Mobile-only, as you know, Android and iOS update annually their OS, and a lot of times there's breaking changes. It's a very high cost for these vendors to maintain compatibility, and many fade away after a few years of trying. Personally, I like to find vendors that span across multiple technologies and aren't tied to anything specific with mobile. This helps with the probability that they will be around years to come. Hopefully these 6 tips were helpful. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.